we're there. Good evening, everyone. This is the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. This is a special edition where some of us get together and discuss whiskey, while one member of the episode is in a queue waiting to purchase whiskey. Alex Lindsay will be joining us in a while from his phone, but in the meantime, I'm here with Pruitt, who has been a previous guest on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. Welcome back, Ant. Good to see you.
My man, Matteo. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too. And this time, we're not going to be talking much tech. We're going to be talking another one of our passions, whiskey.
Of course.
And obviously, thank you for introducing me to Steve on the Twitter, as well as other places. Welcome, Steve Brazill.
Nice to meet you, Matteo. And Ant, it is always good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, my man. Yeah,
we can talk tech too. I mean, that's my world. So.
Damn that.
This evening, we're here to talk about whiskey, with or without an E. And I think Steve probably has the most impressive display on his table there. Steve, why don't you walk us through what you have there?
It's so well-rounded.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything here. The only thing I didn't pull out was my blends. My Johnny Walker and my Chevis are up in the cupboard. This side is all UK. So I got Aberlour, Glendronach, Macallan, Lafroig, which we talked about in the green room.
Campfire
Doesn't
in the
get
glass,
touched
brother.
very often. Yeah. We got an Oban Little Bay, which is an unusual one. One of my faves, which is the Glenmorangie 18. This is probably my go-to whiskey, which is Bushmills 16. This is the special occasion one that I'm drinking right now, which is the Balvenie 21 Portwood. And then we have a Redbreast. And if you're into American whiskeys, over here we've got, what do I got? I've got the 1792.
I see the Colonel.
Jack Singleberry. Oh, you know what?
The Colonel, baby.
Taylor is amazing.
That's my favorite whiskey. That
Angel's Envy go-to. And then we've got, if you've never had this, I can't recommend it enough, Slow Hand Six Woods. This one, have you guys ever tried this? The High West?
Have not seen that one.
No, that's
High West
new
is
to me.
High West is out of Utah, and while they were waiting for their own whiskeys to age, they started blending other people's whiskeys. So this is a mix of Four Roses and some other one, and it's spicy and it's good. And this is the winner last year, McKenna.
Yeah. Colonel Taylor, that's probably my favorite bourbon.
Yeah, I would agree.
So good, and it's so good. Now, my second favorite bourbon though is Henry McKenna. I see you have it right there, but they have the I think it's a 7-year or 8-year that you can get it for like $10 US, and it's so daggum good.
Well, this was an interesting one. This is 10 year. And this was the one, I tried it at a whiskey bar and I went out to try and buy it and couldn't find it anywhere. And it ends out, it's $35 US.
Yeah, nothing.
Went out and tried to buy it and everybody said, oh no, we're out of it. Everybody wants it. And I couldn't figure out why. So I, Googled it. It won the gold medal. It won the championship.
Yeah.
And there was a big debate. Why, should a $35 bottle be allowed to win? It's like, well, yeah, if it's great whiskey, yes.
Right. If it's good, it's good.
People were selling it for $100. It's back down to $35. It's a great bottle of whiskey.
That's what's up.
So what are you guys drinking?
Ant, what are you drinking today?
Well, I am going with my special occasion because, I'm on air with my homies. This is the Glendronach 18. I don't pull this one out very often, but I love Glendronach. I got introduced to it several years ago with the 15, and I've had the 12 several times, but at one point you couldn't get the 15. It just went away, and you would scour the internet for it, and they would tell you, no, it's out. We just don't have it. But it has started to come back now within the last 8 months or so, supposedly, but I haven't seen it. But I was able to get this 18 when I was leaving Shanghai last summer, duty free, and it made my day.
What's a bottle of 18 run?
This one, I think duty free, I got it for, I think it was $140, something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. Totally worth it. It still has that strong, sweet vanilla that the 15 has, but then they give you just a little bit of smoke on the finish of it. Love it.
Very nice. So I'm considering this a special occasion and drinking
Yeah.
Johnny Walker Blue Label. Now, it
Ooh.
may not be a single malt, but it is a very, very tasty blend,
Yep.
and one that's consistently flavoursome throughout the years.
Yep.
One of the things I like about Johnny Walker Blue Label is also the history I have with it, which all seems to stem from trade shows such as MWC and IFA in cities like Berlin and Barcelona. People don't drink whiskey that much. It's not a drink that people order in bars. So, for example, in Barcelona, if you go to a bar, one of the open bar events that mobile phone manufacturers usually put on, and ask for a whiskey, the bar staff are usually a bit confused and have to go into the back and check what they have. And they come out with a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, which is very, very dangerous at open bar events. But it brings me lots of very positive memories. So I'm going to stick with Johnny Walker Blue Label this evening.
Mm. Now, see, the Johnny Walker, I love the Blue Label, of course, but the one that you tend to get most of the time around here is the Black Label, especially when you start talking about the conferences and stuff. They always have that at CES when you go to the press events, and it's almost like nobody there really wants it. They'd rather have the blue, but the Black Label is just fine. It's just fine.
Black Label's fine. I used to be a blend guy. I like I say, I've got Johnny Walker Black and I've got the Chivas up there, but I'm a single malt guy now. The blue I like though.
Same here. I'd rather have single malt over a blend, but if I'm going to do blend, I'll go with the Johnny Walker Blue. Fun fact about that is my friends and family back in the Carolinas, Clemson thing, that is, whenever we have our big games, the blue is what's normally brought to the table. It's the blue, or I'll bring Lagavulin or Ardbeg with us for the special occasion games.
So last time I was in the South, in Texas, I discovered TX bourbon, which is very pleasant, very, very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really enjoyed that. But sadly, it's very difficult to come by here in the UK. I haven't been able to find it here.
I've been hearing that it's harder to get in general, between the Texas bourbon and the Colorado. I believe Colorado is another one. Is it Breckenridge? Does that sound familiar?
Breckenridge, Colorado. I've skied there, yeah.
It's like they've gotten so much more popular on a micro brewery level, and it's hard time keeping up with demand, supposedly.
There's a whiskey out of Colorado called Stray Hands I've heard of, but I've never had.
Mm-hmm.
That's supposed to be really good.
Mm. See, now I got to go look all of this stuff up.
Yeah.
So that's one of the great things about whiskey, and which makes some of us quite passionate about it. There's so much diversity, and over the last 30 years, so many startups have really been taking what is essentially a very historic beverage and making new riffs on it, disrupting the traditional distilleries that didn't move with the times. So it's a very good place to be, in the sense that there's a lot of learning to do, and there's always some surprising thing coming from places you wouldn't imagine making whiskey, such as Japan or Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Canada's had whiskey obviously for a long time, but the Japanese whiskeys, some of them are just amazing.
I didn't really know anything about the Japanese until seriously roughly 2, maybe 3 years ago. It's been fairly recent for me. And
the Kabiki and
getting into those, and I really like the Toki. It's inexpensive, and it's sort of a nice change of pace, if you will. From what I can remember about it, because I don't have a bottle of it right now, but what I remember about it is it had sort of a honeydew flavor to it, and so it would go great in the summertime with maybe a chip of ice in it, because it just had that sort of a melon taste to it. It's really good.
Have you guys had French whiskeys? Because I saw one in a store the other day, and I've never had a French whiskey.
Is that allowed in France?
Well, yeah.
I mean, come on. That's all champagne over there, right?
They're really good at brandy as well.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I didn't
But
think about that.
but I wasn't aware of French companies making whiskey, and I would imagine that they might have some sort of government or EU guideline along the fact that they can't call it whiskey; they have to have some French word for it.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm not saying anything.
They'd have to be different. So not right.
It's sadly true, but then again, the French are good at brandy, and that is another type of drink, completely different base to make the distillate. Have any of you tried grappa?
Grappa?
Yes.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, I've had grappa. I'm a port fan. I like port. I like Madeira. Grappa's a little bit. I don't even know how to describe it. It takes getting used to.
It is definitely an acquired taste.
Yeah. I like Madeira, but I've never heard of grappa.
Grappa's an after-dinner drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to give you some context, grappa is an Italian drink, or specifically a Mediterranean one. And it's usually after they've squeezed the grapes to make wine, they have leftover stalks and seeds and skins, and they then decide to go and squeeze that again. The remaining liquid gets fermented and then distilled. So essentially every wine has its own grappa. And then they get aged in barrels, and they have similar coloring to whiskey. But it's a very different premise to then make the distillate from. And there we are. Alex Lindsay is back. That was
sorry about that.
Thank you for joining us to talk about whiskey.
I was a little understocked. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't, and so I didn't have any, I realized I didn't have any for the day because I drank it earlier this week. And so then I was like, oh no. And because I haven't been going out as often, obviously. And so then I went, I'll just run over to Bevmo. And I've been on air a couple times today. And I was like, between this show and this show, I'm just going to run out to Bevmo. I'll go pick it up. I'll come back in. Now I get there and you have to order it on your phone. And then I just keep waiting. And I was on another call and I suddenly realized I'm not going to make it. So I came in and I said, here's the deal. I'm doing a live stream about the whiskey that I ordered from you. So we're either going to live stream the whiskey, or I'm going to live stream why Bevmo can't get me my whiskey.
And then they do the thing where they stay inside, and as you stand there, they open the door. What are you here for?
Yeah. No. They're like, no. I couldn't go in. I had to order it and then I had to wait there. And so somehow that sped things up. So
I'll have to try that next time I'm out.
That's good.
Yeah.
So shopping was successful.
I have the Yamazaki 12-year, which I like quite a bit.
Yes,
we
were just talking
Japanese. Very good one. I have to admit, I was trying to decide on the way out what I was going to get, and I just made fresh rice, and I was like, I'm going to get something Japanese. Yeah. So anyway.
Here's Alex.
Okay, I got.
Oh, he's got a pour.
Give me a second. I just got here.
Pour.
I just got here.
Damn it, man.
Well, we've already discussed everything, and we were just wrapping up. So,
oh no!
All right.
Cheers.
He didn't work that well.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
So, Alex, we were just saying this is a nice change of pace. We don't have to talk about tech, but we're just thinking let's talk about another one of our great passions, which is in this case whiskey.
No, Steve wanted to talk tech, damn IT guy.
So, Steve,
now,
what sort of lens do you use to take pictures of whiskey?
Yeah. Well, I'm a Canon shooter. Yeah. If there's no stage lights and a rock and roller on the stage, I don't shoot.
Yeah. He does all of the musicians, and he does some amazing work for the concerts.
Thank you, Ant. I appreciate that, buddy.
That stuff that what gets me is a concert photographer being in the pit. I never really thought about that actual scenario, and I know how I am just walking the streets and how sometimes I feel like I need space or whatever to get a composition. There's no such thing as space in those pits, is it?
No, somebody posted a picture I took with my phone a couple of years ago at Mayhem Fest. There were probably 70 photographers in the pit. You couldn't move. It was the only time it's actually felt dangerous to me being in a photo pit. But I will tell you, I've told Ant this before, but there is nothing, and everybody's been to a concert, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is nothing like the background music is playing, waiting for the headliner, and a song stops, and everybody, are they coming up? And then another song starts.
Mm-hmm.
And like 30 seconds before a headliner hits the stage, there is nothing like that energy in a room. There's just nothing like
the anticipation, right?
Yeah. It's magic. It's just magic.
I can only imagine. I've like you see, like I've been working behind the scenes on events. I used to work for Sony Music and then I was in radio and did promotions. And so since the time I was 19, I was somewhere backstage somewhere for all of these things and had media passes and everything else. And when I go to an actual concert where I have to be like, even at the front row, I'm kind of like, this is really boring. Like, I don't know how anyone lives this way. Like,
Right? How
can you, but don't you get used to it? You get used to that lifestyle. Like when we were working Coachella, and I suddenly realized my media pass will get me on the stage.
People say to me, let's buy tickets to this show. And I'm like, buy tickets.
Buy tickets.
To sit in a seat far away? No. Usually for me, the front row is back there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And Alex and I have that in common in that I've been in radio for 40 years. And
right.
I remember when meet and greets were industry people, right?
Right.
We in radio got backstage to meet the Robert Plants and stuff. And now those are all monetized VIP things.
Yeah, when I was 21, I just become music director for an alternative rock station. And so I was going through the list, so you go through the list on Monday, and this is the R&R parallel, the R&R parallel list that used to be there, right? So we were an R&R parallel, even though we were a little station. And so what that means for those listening is if you're an R&R parallel and you drop something on your charts, they will go down in the national charts.
Right,
and so there's a lot of pressure on it. And I'm 21 years old, and so you're Monday and Tuesday before you do the report on Tuesday, and the Monday I think it's a report on Tuesday or Monday. But you get a couple calls on Thursday and Friday, but then you have all the frenetic calls from the radio stations, from the promoters. There's individual promoters, and then there's the guys that are calling you from Warner or Uni or whatever. Anyway, so you get all these calls coming in, and so the guy from A&M calls me and to run the charts, and I say, hey, by the way, Sting's coming in, in 3 weeks. I was wondering if I could get backstage there. I really want to meet Sting. I was insane Police fan, like just out there Police fan. I was like, I'd really like to meet Sting, and he's like, oh no, we gave those away a long time ago. And I was like, okay, let's just go run the list. And he started going off all these people, and I said, yeah, I think I'm going to drop them into light. I don't think that they're really getting any traction. And the next one was like, yeah, I think this is going to be in medium,
leverage.
And so he goes, hey, can we finish this in a minute? I got to make a phone call. And I said, yeah, sure. Just call me back whenever you want to. And he calls back like a half an hour later. He's like, okay, you SOB. He's like, you got 2 passes to the Sting one. And I was like, oh, that's great. And he goes, let's go back to the list. And I was like, yeah, I think we're going to hold them all where they're at. I think it's going to be fun. But that was the music industry, that was a light version of the music industry, as I found out later. Yeah, like just a subtle, like I went behind the scenes, but anyway, he didn't do me any more favors after that. Like I could tell, like I used my political capital with him almost in day one. And then I mostly spent most of my time hanging out with Polygram.
Oh gosh.
The music industry is an amazing place, as Steve will confirm as well.
It's a bizarre world. The music industry is one of the most political things I've ever seen. It's
the only skill set is being able to make a deal. Like literally that is the skill set. Well, where I worked anyway. I mean, for when you're doing radio and promotions and everything else, you interact. There's no technical skill. There's no college that they went to. There's just the ability to get things done. And if you can do that and you're not an alcoholic, you can go pretty far pretty quickly, because I mean,
you're not an alcoholic.
Well, there's a lot of free, when you're a music director, basically, and you're 21 years old and everyone's buying you drinks.
Yeah.
All the time.
Literally one of the reasons I dropped out of radio was I was like, this is going to kill my liver. Like I can't drink this much every night. I mean, it was and it didn't cost me anything, and it's,
right.
and so And you think, oh, well, it's top shelf. I'm going to have some more and everything else. And I was like, I can't do this.
That's why I like being on the air. I just close the studio door and no one's allowed to go in there when I'm on the air. I'm on my own.
And see, I look at you guys that were shooting concerts and stuff, and I've only been able to shoot like Adobe Max. That's the closest thing, is shooting presentations like that. And it's so daggum challenging because of the way the lights change every couple seconds, and the talent is moving around, and it's damn near hit or miss, you know.
What kind of ISO are you shooting at?
Me?
Yeah, when you're doing concerts.
When I walk into a venue that I'm not familiar with the band or what their lighting is going to be, my starting point is always 1600 ISO, 1/250, and I shoot wide open at all times. I'm 2.8 no matter what.
Wow. See, I would have said 3200.
Inevitably, my most average ISO is 3200. I'll hit 6400 on a regular basis. On a rare occasion, I'll go, 10,000, 12,000. Yeah. But on average, I'm somewhere between probably 32 and 64.
Oh, right. So tough. So tough. Man.
Yeah. And yes, it is noisy. Yeah, it's noisy.
Now, what earplugs do you use? Do you have a custom?
Yeah, I have custom molded Sensophonics.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'd do the Sensophonics again because I had to have the custom molds made where they inject. And I will say, I don't think it was supposed to, but it hurt like hell.
I found it to be very. I had some done for my ears and for some Etymotics that I was using, and
nice.
It's very, very disconcerting. When they did it, it didn't hurt
because they leave them in.
Yeah.
And now Ultimate Ears, I have friends who work for Ultimate Ears, and Ultimate Ears does a scan of your ear.
Nice.
Like an ultrasound of your ear. You watch it draw on screen. It's almost like, doing Face ID or something or Print ID on an iPhone. You watch it draw and they say, okay, you'll have your plugs in 2 weeks. That's the way to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll tell you though, and because you've had them, Alex, but if you guys ever do anything loud, there is literally no better investment I made than $200 in custom plugs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I bet so.
Well, and it's why I didn't do any of that when I was a music director when I was 21 years old, not thinking about it. And now when it's quiet, I just have a constant, like
that little bit of a ring.
The ring.
It's not a little bit. It's a lot. And every once in a while, one ear will go out and it'll just be like all ring. So I have one ear that goes all ring every once in a while, but for the most part, I just have this silence. To me is like this kind of low, which I can still hear pretty well. Like my when I get tested, my ability to hear is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But there's just one little tone in there that's there all the time.
Oh gosh.
Keeps me comfort. I try to tell myself I'm still alive. See?
As long as you
know
hear
that,
it, right?
No, because I know that when I die, I'll wake up and I'll be like, hey, there's no ring. And I'm like,
I can hear.
See, I'm at the complete other end of the spectrum. I'm not a very big audiophile, though in the last few years I have discovered the wonderful world of Chi-Fi. Have you heard of that?
A what?
Chi-Fi. So there's a lot of companies, startups in Shenzhen, who are specializing in high-end hi-fi products at amazingly affordable prices.
In the US, we call that Dolby Atmos.
Right. Right.
So I
miss hi-fi. I really do. I have Sonos everywhere, but I still have an old Thorns turntable that's not hooked up.
I was in an undisclosed theater in Northern California, and they had 170 speakers with a Meyer Audio Constellation that then they had souped up. And I just have to say, like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I need Dolby Atmos. I need more, because you could hear a bird flying around the theater. You just hear this bird flying around, and it just sounded like there was a bird there. And
that's just awesome.
And they took the stems from Black Hole Sun from Soundgarden and spread it out in the theater. And you were just like, okay, I just want to listen to everything like that. Like I'm done. Like the whole.
That wasn't the alcohol from when you were 21.
Right. Right. That's
I think I know the
alcohol. wasn't that the alcohol from when I was 21 had the sound go all around me. I don't know. I don't know how that would possibly happen.
Could be anything.
That alcohol that
I think I know the almost underground studio you're talking about there.
No comment.
No
but
comment.
anyway, it's great. But the it is like when you hear music in that full surround experience, you just realize how much you're missing with just stereo, and and I hear that like it does. Like I have I can't say that I put it in, but the house that I ended up buying in California has surround sound in the theater area, and not in the theater area. It's just it's right next to the kitchen. It's not like anything special, but it has surround sound. And you get used to it. Like everything you watch, you're just used to things coming around. And then when shows come up with just stereo, you're like, what's wrong with the show?
Yeah, it almost hurts your ears when it just cuts off the stereo.
I have Sonos surround with a bar.
Oh yeah.
And satellites and then a sub. And when something's only coming out of the bar, it frustrates me.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I not hearing anything back here? There's wind. Why is the wind up there?
Well, I got excited about it. I started playing around with an idea where I was like, well, we should get this for the video too. So the video should be not VR, but I was like, the lighting should change with the screen. Right?
The ambient light.
So what I did is I was using a program that I have that has a bunch of little bits and pieces to it that you can, do image analysis. And so what it did in real time was it found the median color at every frame. It found the median color, and then it would drive the LEDs, the color of the LEDs in the same color that the median color of the screen was. So if you're in a warm area, it would be these warm colors, and if it got dark, they'd get dark, and if it got blue, they'd get blue. And
how is it reading the screen?
It's a software. It was Conduit. It was called Conduit, which is something we made a long time ago. So it's just HDMI into a Blackmagic mini recorder, goes into the software, then the software then links that data out, and it ran the lights. And I literally, it made me so upset that I couldn't, it only took like 5 minutes of watching Raiders before I was like, I can't do this. I can't, like, it is so, the information overload was so much. And cause it's going like this, and there's all this stuff. And you realize that there's something there though, that I was like, this might be possible, but I got to figure it out. And then I moved. I haven't gotten around to rebuilding it, but it is, there had to have been some attack and delay or something, because at real time of it changing, it created so much stress that,
right.
I work on live events, and it created a lot of stress for me. Like usually I usually don't feel that much stress, but it just made my skin crawl. So
got to figure out like gate timing, if you will.
Yeah. Just some kind of attack and delay that's kind of slow and picking up speed. Yeah.
Nice.
What was it improved in any way by Whiskey?
Everything is improved by Whiskey.
Always.
Everybody. And I love that.
Cheers, everyone.
The Glen Cairns glass everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That way, we're not messing around. We're just not a bunch of drunks with cameras and whiskeys.
Whereas I'm just cheating with a standard tumbler. That's my partner gave me as a gift. It's laser engraved with my name on it. So.
Oh, nice.
What is your favorite whiskey, Matteo?
My favorite. That's a good thing. I suppose it's very contextual on what type of drinking I'm doing, but I'd say overall, Oban 14.
Okay.
I know you have Little Bay.
I love Oban.
I've never had the 14. Yeah.
I have it downstairs. Super sweet. Super smooth.
Yeah.
I think it's just the context. I used to live 5 doors down from the distillery in Oban town itself.
You suck.
I met my partner there, Candice. She is from Oban, so.
The funny thing is that why I picked a Japanese whiskey, I learned about Oban in Japan. We were working in Tokyo, and someone we were working with said, "Come out and have some yakitori, and I'm going to take you to a whiskey." They have this incredible whiskey bar that was a little outside of Tokyo, and that's the first time I ever had it, and it's definitely one of my favorite whiskeys. It's incredible.
How's the 14 differ from the Little Bay?
So
I've never had the Little Bay.
The Little Bay is an exclusive for duty free in airports. It's for the travel industry.
I bought this at a liquor store. That's interesting.
But that's interesting. As far as I know, the Little Bay is for that. So the 14 is the standard, the bulk produced one. It's slightly less peaty and, in my opinion, slightly smoother.
Okay.
Whereas I think the Little Bay is slightly peatier and a bit fruitier. But I suppose it's always subjective and always depends on what sort of area.
I was in a place in London where they actually did pairings with whiskey, which I thought was amazing. Like it was just like this a restaurant where you could get pairings of different cheeses and other things that worked with that whiskey. And I was like, this is much better than wine. Like I was like, I like wine. Think? I like wine. I'm in Northern California, but I was like, you're talking about whiskey. Now we're talking something. You're gonna have some serious conversations here.
Have y'all ever hosted like a whiskey tasting at your places?
For me, the favorite is when you get somebody that is not a whiskey drinker.
Yeah.
And they say, I'd be willing to try it. Come on down.
Yeah.
And you just do literally sips of a couple of different things, and you take them through. Like on the Americans, you'll start more general, and you'll bring yourself up into the heavier bourbons. From a standard whiskey that's sweet to a more of a bourbon to maybe a rye or a blend or something. And same on the scotches. But again, one of the things I love about whiskey, and same with wine for that matter, is price really doesn't play a point.
Right.
I had the Glenmorangie Signet, and I like the 18 better than the Signet.
Mm-hmm. And heck, we already talked about Henry McKenna in the $10 one. It's so good to be $10.
Have you had McKenna, Alex?
I haven't. I have not had it.
Oh, phenomenal.
Best $10 your spin, brother.
Well,
it won the gold medal. It won the prize in San Francisco at the whiskey championships, and it's a $35 bottle.
Wow. Yeah, I have a DP who I know that if I buy him drink, all he wants is Johnny Walker Red. Like like that's his thing. He likes the way it tastes. He doesn't need to be more than that. It doesn't need to be it's just like he just wants that's his drink. And so he's always excited that I remember that I order whatever I'm going to order, but I order him the Johnny Walker Red, not black, not blue, not green,
black, not blue, not green.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
well, it's like Jack Daniels. I mean, I love a single barrel and stuff, but really, if you're just at a restaurant eating dinner, there's nothing like just Jack Rocks.
Yeah.
And it's the consistency throughout the years that once you reach a certain age, you get used to.
Right.
Well, and then some of them really are. I was talking to someone about the length of the, like some are better as they get older, and some of them are much better as they're younger, and they're not necessarily like it's, like Macallan. From what I understand, is much better older than it is younger. I know that for me, 21 is kind of the minimum that I really enjoy a Macallan. It's really? 21, 25. Yeah. We make bets on 25s. Like that's like wow. I bet you a 25. If I say I bet you a 25, just so you know, if I say I bet you a 25, what that means is I bet you a Macallan 25 on something. Because that's I have a producer who still owes me a 25. But that's like the big bet. Like that's I'm sure. Oh, and the reason they owe me the 25 was because we bet on. She said that it was going to take longer than an hour to get to Vegas, and I was like, nope. It's less. Turns out, just in case you're wondering, fortunately the flight was 56 minutes. I was getting a little worried at the end. I was like, if we have to go around, I'm going to owe
just
25.
Close.
Would the Macallan be your whiskey of choice then, the 25?
No, a 25 would be my whiskey. It's just an easy one that you can find anywhere, but it's so my 20 if I was going to get a Macallan, I'll only get a 21 and 25. The other ones I don't find to be particularly great.
I have a, what is this?
I like the 18.
12. I have a 12 and
okay. The 12 and the 18s are, but I was told, so the problem is I know what all of these words look like, but I don't know how to say them. So I'm going to get corrected. But
thank you, Matteo.
Matteo Glenmorangie. Is that right? Did I say that correctly?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, Glenmorangie. I was talking to one of their PR people. I was streaming the Open, or working on streaming the Open, just local stream for the people that were there. And so we were flying in, and he happened to be sitting next to me, and so we were talking about it. And he said that theirs tends to be much better because of the length of the. I don't know enough about the mechanics of it, but because of the length that they're kept in, that the Glenmorangie tend to be better younger, or they're known for it. They tend to be better younger than the Macallan. And they said it just depends on how they're being made. Some are better in their younger years than the other ones, and some you really need to let them go for a while before they're worth it.
It's also potentially be related to the type of casks they're in and the types of bonded warehouses they're stored in. And
I think it was the length of the cask. I think that the Macallan is a longer. I think it's either a longer cask or a shorter cask. I don't remember which, but he said it affects how they're going to be later. I asked him I said, do you have a lot of whiskey? And he's like, because he works for, I was like, I said, do you have other people's whiskey or do you only have your own? He's like, of course you have to have your everybody's whiskey to understand what it is. And I said, do you have a lot of whiskey? And he's like, yeah, I have a lot of whiskey. It's my job. And I said, how many do you have? And he goes, I have no idea. He's like somewhere between, he said it's somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000, but I don't know exactly what the number is. And I was just like, I want to come visit your house.
A longer cask. Why would the only thing I can think of that a longer cask would matter is because you have more wood surface area.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to the I don't know what the answer was to that, but he had it like long and short, had a big distinction on how it was going to age over time.
Okay, so that sounds like a good investigatory piece for us
to
absolutely find out for the next chat about whiskey. And that's
who knows
for
a Cooper?
Glenmorangie.
Anybody know a Cooper?
Cooper? Who's that?
No, a Cooper. They make the barrels, the casks.
Oh, okay, right. Apologies. And what's your favorite whiskey at the moment?
Who, me?
Yes.
It'll still be Lagavulin 16. That I've always been a fan of the peat, the Isla whiskeys, but of those bunch is probably the Lagavulin 16 because it's just enough peat and just enough of just a little bit of sweet to it on the end of it. Love it.
Excellent.
Weird to me to discuss scotches as sweet. I mean, really, when you compare them to American whiskeys or bourbons,
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not sweet in comparison to each other. They are,
but... right. I was having a chat with Queen Pruitt the other night because, now that we're here in Northern California and wine country, we're supposed to be able to drink wine, and we get all of these different bottles, and I can't discern the differences between them. They all sort of taste the same, other than like I know a Malbec versus I don't know, whatever else, red cab or something. I could tell that's different, but I can never really pick up all of the different tasting notes that like a Somm would be able to pick up. But I can nose this right here and give you a good 10-minute speech on it. Because it just does. I don't know why that is.
And people ask me, they're like, do you like it to be more peaty or, and I was like, I like it all. Like, I like the range. I feel I'm in this mood or I'm in this mood. I don't need it to be,
exactly.
I don't want it to be, I don't get it. There's no rut for me. There's just like, what do I feel like?
I drink.
I like to know what I'm drinking.
All.
Yeah, exactly.
I drink them all, but of my top tier, I'd rather have a peated one. And if I'm not going to go peaty, I'll like to go with like what I'm having here is the Glendronach, something Highland and a little bit sweeter,
It's the choice that makes it. Really.
Yeah.
There are times, no matter what I have at the house, I'll still want a Jack Daniels. There's times that it's like, you know what? I need to pull out the Balvenie 21.
Yeah.
It really, like a wine. There's times you want a Chardonnay. There's times you want a Sangiovese. You pick based on mood or based on what you're eating.
Yeah. Based on what you're eating does make a difference too. And see, this makes me think back to before I moved last year. I hosted a whiskey tasting party with some of the guys I know from my fantasy football league. And I did that because in the Black community, you're going to be drinking beer. You're going to drink Jack Daniels here and there. But most of the time it was vodka and gin. That's just what people consumed. And whenever I was out with a friend here and there and I would order a scotch, they would look at me crazy, like, who the hell orders scotch? Because they just wasn't, they didn't know anything about it, wasn't introduced to it, So I said, I'm going to do this party. And when I did the party and had the guys over, it was fascinating to see how they could actually pick up, the differences, all the nuance between the 4 or 5 that I had out there. But like how you said, Steve, you just put a little sip in there, give it a little bit of time, and walk them through, you know, where it came from and why it's going to taste the way it tastes, versus that, you know, $5 bottle of Jim Beam. You know, nothing wrong with Jim Beam, but it's just a different flavor, you know, and a different tasting notes and all. So,
have you ever showed anybody the difference when you add water?
Yeah, that was part of it. I had chilled glasses of water on the table too, and I had this little it was actually my spoon that I use to make tea when I make loose tea, because it's just small enough and just big enough to not overpower it, but just allow it to open up. And I can remember my youngest son. So now everybody's going to judge me now because I want to bring children in.
I'm already in my head.
My youngest son, one day, he was just hanging out with me one evening after work, and I'm sitting there and I'm pouring my drink, and I grabbed the glass for a little bit of water. And when I put it in there, and he could see the difference in the glass with what happens there, and he's like, wow, what's going on? I said, it's science. And I explained to him, you know, how it's going to change the flavors and stuff. He didn't taste it. Now, my oldest boy, on the other hand.
And how old was your son?
At that time, he was like, I think 11 or 12, something like that. You know?
I can tell you that when I was 11 or 12, I had already.
Oh yeah, now
it's pretty clear the differences.
Yeah. now my oldest boy, I can remember when he was like 16 or something like that. He wanted to be Billy Badass and drank a bottle of my Macallan. Well, not a bottle, but drink a shot of the Macallan. And I said, okay, you're gonna sit down right here and you're gonna do it. And oh my gosh, I had it on video somewhere, and it's just his face and he's screaming and it's burning and I love that stuff, man. And he won't touch it now.
That's see, you got it sorted.
Isn't one of the sayings about Macallan that it has to be old enough to be drunk in the US?
That's true.
Now, how much water do you add, Matteo?
So I prefer not to add water.
Same here.
I prefer it straight. I've noticed that when I do add water, though, depending on where I am and the type of water that you add, it makes a difference. So in Edinburgh, for example, we have very soft water, and it really does very little. It sweetens the whiskey if you do add it. Whereas at my parents' house in Italy, in the north of Italy near Milan, it's a very hard water, and it gives it a very different flavoring if you do add water to it.
Which makes sense, because that's one of the big differences in Canadian whiskey versus American whiskey is they all have water in them.
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting. What I was surprised at when we were so we were there for the Open for a couple weeks, to prep and then to do the Open. And we were we just did an Airbnb or a VBRO or something, but we stayed in someone's house. So we were able to stay with a couple, and I was just surprised at how much water they put in it. Like I think of it as like a little drop or just a touch of water. And he's like, and then I was like, that's a lot of water, and so I was like, I've been doing this all wrong. But I decided I was like, I think I'm going to continue to do it all wrong. If I do it, it's just like it's a couple drops to open it up, but it's not.
I think of like a Crystal Geyser bottle, the cap. I think of like a capful, maybe.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But the difference in taste, I mean, it's pronounced.
Right. Yep.
And
I'm quite fine with it. Go ahead.
With Scotch, it definitely sweetens it a lot. Makes it closer to an American whiskey with an E. But sorry, Alex, you were saying? No,
that's it. I was just going to say that I have just a little bit of it. I'm fine with it straight. I'm fine with it just a little. I do like it sometimes with just a little bit of water. It's good, but I don't go crazy with it. And I'm fine. Like if I get it straight, I can. It's just to me, it's just a different flavor, and I enjoy both of them.
I want to go on record, and so we're not the whiskey snobs and jerks that are out there that tells you you're supposed to drink it neat. That's bullshit. Drink it
how you like it.
However you like it.
Just even with ice. How you want it.
Drink red wine with fish.
Yeah.
If that's what you want.
If that's what you want. I don't recommend it, but if that's what you want, sure.
So here's a question, Matteo, because I read years ago, and as I recall, it was from a reputable source, that the reason that there's no E or E is because Scotch, as in Scotch whiskey, had no E. When Ireland started making whiskey and needed to compete on the world market, they added an E for a difference in branding, and that the US just kept the E. That's what I've always heard was the difference between why Scotch whiskey has no E in the word and Irish and American whiskey has an E. Is anybody here able to confirm or deny that?
So that's what I heard.
Argument.
That's what I heard. The same argument about. I think it's in a way a parallel to the terms for tea. So you can have tea, which is te, or chai. So if your country got their tea via land, it's called chai. If your country got their tea via sea, it's called tea. And the same goes for the whiskey industry. So those who started their production via Ireland have an E in it. Those who started it via Scotland don't, such as Japan. Alex, can you confirm that bottle that you have there has an E or doesn't?
It has no E.
No E.
Interesting.
So I think that confirms the theory, but then again, we can make this fact.
Oh, I can't get it in focus.
Wait,
Yes,
Alex,
exactly.
if you speak whilst you're showing the bottle, we should be able to see it.
So I don't know if you can read it, and I have a kind of it's not really a webcam, so it goes out of focus really fast. So
What is it?
It's the Yamazaki.
No. I mean
single
the
malt.
webcam.
Oh, my webcam. My cam is it's a Blackmagic studio camera. You know, their little studio one with the screen and the thing and the.
I was gonna say because your background is beautifully soft.
It's because it's not real.
I was going to say.
I can see the fringes in your hair now. That's what it is. Okay, I got you.
Somebody's got a chroma key.
It's a pretty good chroma key. It's a good full. It's a. No, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out whether I was going to do what I was going to do in the background, and then I just decided to put a green screen up and call it a day. So that's what I did.
I wasn't doing any of that. I was like, whatever.
See?
I'm hanging out with my buddies.
I was going to do it.
I put a light on.
No. I have it. I'm on this. I'm on to be sure. I'm on this 6 hours a day. So it's you know, on some show, working some show, in meetings, doing events, you know, whatever. And so it was just easier. There's a lot of gear here to make it easy for me to sit down and do what I do easily and quickly. So
I was going to do this in my studio, my normal where I podcast, but I thought I want to do more stuff in a different place. Like if I'm doing a bag review or a camera review, and I thought, let's just use this as a scenario to test what it's like to bring the Canon 5D out here and see what happens.
But yes, Steve definitely wins for presentation here this evening.
Yes, absolutely.
It's only because I needed something on the table. Yeah.
And
this though is really good, by the way, if anybody is looking for a good book on whiskey.
The World Atlas of Whiskey.
Oh,
interesting.
Man.
Very good. Send us the link to that, and I'll put it in the description to the video.
We'll do
once
that.
It's published. Just before we wrap up, this is just a quick yay or nay from you on what some call heresy. Do you put whiskey in your coffee, and if so, which one? And let's start with you.
Yay.
And what do you put in your whiskey, in your coffee?
Henry McKenna.
What?
Yes, I've put bourbon in my coffee before, and it has to be specific coffee. I'd rather it be like an Ethiopian coffee, not a Colombian. It makes a difference.
Okay, Steve, how about you?
I have had an Irish or Mexican coffee, which would generally be Jameson's in the coffee or tequila. But in general, I look at it the same as Jack and Coke. It's like, why would I ruin a Diet Coke? And why would I ruin a whiskey at the same time? So to me, it's whiskey, and I don't generally mix it. Plus, it's kind of hard to get enough whiskey in a shot of espresso.
Don't judge me, Mr. Brazill. Don't judge me.
I would never judge you, my friend.
And how about you, Alex?
I don't put anything in my coffee. So I have this obsession with making coffee good enough that I don't have to add anything to it. So so if I don't like the coffee that I'm making, there's a bunch of when I make coffee, it's at 200 degrees, 25 grams of, anywhere from 23 to 28 grams, depending on what coffee I'm using, ground at a certain level.
Yep.
and pour it over at a certain speed. And it's kind of like what I do in the morning. It sounds like a lot of work, but when you get used to it, I'm almost as fast as an espresso to do it. Like I'm just kind of like moving around and doing a bunch of other things and prepping. I make rice for the family in the morning, so I throw the rice into the rice cooker while the thing's getting hot, and I'm doing, there's a whole bunch of things that all happen in the morning. And so I don't usually put anything in my coffee at all. I usually drink it.
I do pour over too. I know the process. I do pour over too.
I got tips from Alex actually when we bought our espresso machine, and we were trying to figure out weight.
Yeah, it's
it's so touchy.
And all you go is, oh, that was a little too much, or a little too not quite, a little watery, and then you just keep on error adjusting. And then I know for each different coffee, the one that the amount that I like. And it's just a matter of precision. The same thing with whether if you're doing sous vide, it's a precise temperature.
Yeah.
If you're doing, you just got to figure out what you can control and make the same. And I have to admit, I got the scales because I was making bread, and so I couldn't get consistent bread without scales. And so but then I started measuring everything, and there's like I have a problem with my brain is if I open it. It's like I told my wife, if I get a tattoo, it'll be sleeves in like 3 years. Like it'll just be like I just keep on adding, because my brain just kind of starts turning on and it just goes, I'm just going to do all of these things. And so so I, in the same way that I have now I have ambient temperature and I have other temperature gauge. I have all these different ways of measuring temperature while I'm cooking, and my kids are used to it. Like I didn't even think of that. They're 10 or 12 and they're running around with like measuring the pan. My daughter, who's 10, measures the pan before she pours the crepes to make sure that it's exactly between 400 and 410 degrees.
I want to follow you around just the day in the life. That would be the best TV ever.
Well, and you mentioned sous vide. There's nothing to me like sous vide mahi. 123 degrees.
Ooh,
there's just
I don't think I've done that.
Oh my gosh! And you put Williams Sonoma spice on the outside. 1 minute, and it is the most. It's like it's still in the water. It's so moist. It's just so amazing. And you also mentioned bread. My wife just made soda bread. Speaking of whiskey, Irish soda bread. And it's amazing what that does with the currants and everything in it with a whiskey.
I'm just amazed. Like once I started making bread, the biggest thing I got was like, wow, this isn't very hard. Like it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And then I was trying to use it as a way to think about training. Like how do you generalize the ideas behind technical training? And so I made 300 loaves and got a pretty good idea of how over the last fall, and I gained like 10 pounds. I'm still getting rid of it, and it was, I got into sourdough and I got into all these other ones and just to think about that process. And anyway, so it was, but I was amazed at how good it is and how easy it is. I'm like, it's just flour, salt, it's like flour, salt, water, yeast, and it comes out differently depending on how long you leave it and what you do with it and all these things. It's just such a magical, bread is such a magical thing. That's all I got to say.
Like make it. I'm not precise enough. That's why I don't make it.
You can't. Warm bread out of your own oven. There is very little in life like it.
And it comes out and it's still cracking. It's like the little, and then the kids would come by. We let it sit for a minute, or 10 or 15 minutes, and then you cut it and it's nice and hot, and you pour some butter on it. You maybe sprinkle just a little bit of honey on it, just to go crazy. And it's better than any kind of dessert.
Yep, so that's it. I'm following you around.
I need to bump. I got a call in a minute.
Yep. Yes.
It was so good. We got to do this more often. This is amazing.
Exactly.
Please.
So thank you very much for joining us on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. We'll link to you all and your resources and channels on the YouTube description to this, and we'll edit the posts and have it available as audio. So thanks for joining everyone. Ant Pruitt, Steve Brazill, and Alex Lindsay. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.